feeling your feelings is kind of the first step and a very important step to healing. And because our feelings, it's kind of chicken the egg. Our feelings can influence our thoughts and how we feel and think and our beliefs, and vice versa. If we think something, we have some feelings and maybe we don't want to feel it. So within the body is where all these emotions, your emotional body lives and thrives. And I've done several meditations, and there's so many different ways to get you into your body to feel your feelings and to recognize what inside you really needs to be felt, heard, seen, and witnessed. So I wanted to take you through this PDF with a little more information, and it's really more about creating a space for you where you feel safe and secure and comfortable to delve into some uncomfortable feelings. So let's go into that a little bit more. So I've been working in trauma and therapy since the late 90s, early 2000s. And I've done everything from crisis counseling in 9/11 when the second tower went down. I worked with individuals that were in there, which was very traumatic, especially living in the US and not having that sort of destruction and devastation at the time. And I've done everything in between to working with people that have been incarcerated because of a violent crime and drug abuse that was related to trauma. And then I've worked with just regular people that are just trying to live their lives. And at some point, there continues to be the same block. Something, they're doing everything, they're going for it, but these feelings that have not been felt and are still living in their system really is creating some obstacles. I don't think anything in life is against you. Like, I don't think astrology is against you. I don't think the world's against. There's nothing against. It's just more opportunities to see what's going on and what needs some attention. Most of the time when we have our emotions like nagging at us or something that is just so like, ugh, I have to deal with this because it's not going away. That's why, because you just need to pause, take a moment, and see what's going on. We are totally made up of energy. Everything in this universe, everything is energy. So how we are pushed together and how all the little molecules and everything and those atoms and all that sciencey stuff comes together and makes our physical form. Like, we make it into tables, we make it into houses, we make it into food. Everything has energy to it. An emotion in your emotional body is really just your energy body. And we invest a lot of time and our energy, actual physical energy, mental energy, all this about emotions. Should I feel it? How should I feel it? How should I respond? What is the appropriate response? Is that valid feeling? Is it unvalid? Someone hurt my feelings. I don't want to be hurt. I'm oversensitive. I'm not sensitive enough. So there's so many things of this rule book societally that has been passed through the generations of how is appropriate to express our emotions. Now, first and foremost, there's a universal spiritual law and law of just do no harm. And that means do no harm to yourself or others. So I am definitely not advocating that your emotions are so valid that you need to press them upon someone else or even put harm towards yourself. So that could be thinking negative thoughts. It could be putting yourself down. It could be berating yourself. It could be berating others. Do no harm is very general, but really, and it's specific, is that as you explore these feelings, they're valid, but that does not mean you need to take action upon them. And that is finding the fine line of how do I validate my feelings and honor them and feel them and have them be expressed. At the same time, how do I do that in a way where I am just not being dragged around by my emotions? Not everything I feel is accurate and real. And you can do a little litmus test of like where you are in your feelings. If there is a reaction to something that seems very minor, I've used this example before, and I've even been the actual participant of this example. If early in my marriage, when it's that after that phase of like, okay, we're in love, this is the perfect person, let's get married, and then your egos come in and you really start to project all of your own stuff onto your partner and them onto you. You maybe start fighting and you're like, who did I marry? And not everyone goes through that, but a good majority of people go through that. And we had this discussion about where the dishes go. So silly, but it's true. These things happen. Like I like them in the sink and he likes them on the side of the sink. And then after weeks and weeks and weeks of doing this, I finally really snapped at him. And I yelled at him, and my reaction was way out of proportion of that. And being just a normal human that loves someone, you'd think my reaction would be like, honey, I'm sorry. I know we've done this before. This is what I prefer. Or if he doesn't do it, just like, big, what, like if that's my biggest problem, then just deal with where he puts the dirty dishes, whether it's in the sink or at the side of the sink. But because I was coming from a wound of not being heard, that was where my anger was. That was where my frustration was. That was where my hurt was from. And until I really dealt with all of those wounds, and our relationships with our significant others are usually have to do with past relationships, but really more with our parental relationships. So until I really faced what was giving me some issues with, hi Stephanie, with what was going on, like I was really reacting to my mother actually. And so I was like, oh, I don't want to be my mother, and I don't want to react everything good to her. We took this, I had to really like, okay, like I can be seen and heard, and where he puts the dishes or not is not how much he loves me or not. That's not a reflective of our marriage. And that's a really good, test to see if where you are at, like where your emotions are. Just because you're frustrated doesn't mean you need to express them. Just because you're sad doesn't mean you need to just retreat all the way back and not partake in your life. So these are just some examples. I'm sure people have tons of examples about feelings and these feeling states. And what I've noticed from all of my work through all the different populations, young children to elderly and everyone in between, just humans, is that we don't often know what to do with our feelings. And we think we need to understand them to have them go away. We think if we feel them sometimes, they'll never go away. It'll be too much. We'll be overwhelmed by them. And we either usually are overly invested in our emotions, and or we numb ourselves out from them. And there's a lot of things that we do. So this is just a brief sort of snippet into this whole idea of how to feel your feelings. So in this guidebook I created, I talk about that. And I talk about that because we're energy and our emotional body is just energy and feelings are just energy. They're there to, well, first, the main feeling of fear is if you're in danger, to do something, take action so that you can protect yourself. You either run away, you either fight off the person that's attacking you to defend yourself to stay alive, or you freeze. So you do one of those. And then if you're in situations where your needs weren't met and it's more of an inner child wound, it wasn't abuse or neglect or abandonment or any of those really more horrific sort of traumas, it just becomes an imprint. Like whatever feeling you were having from that is that there's an emotion stuck around some situation. And if that emotion wasn't fully resolved, like you felt it, and let it go and it's out of your system, then it still keeps playing in on how you behave even 40, 50 years later of what the incident was. Some is very conscious and other times it's very unconscious. Most of the time we're acting very unconsciously with these. We don't remember. And the good thing about your feelings is you don't have to remember a situation. You don't have to link it to this is what it is. There could be an originator of the significant incident that created this, but then you can maybe have like 100, 1,000 examples of how many times this happens. Like the situation happens, you feel like that, and then you react. So what we're doing with this is that your reaction is different, and that you start to feel your feelings, so that feeling is expressed in really just a blink of an eye, and you move on. So you're not carrying all the old stuff into your new life. Most everyone wants or to grow, to change, to have something better. Usually our better or worse is more evaluative, and that's not usually, it's usually something that's more of your perspective. Again, that's not a real guideline. But in growth is that you'd like, as you move forward or you grow or you expand or you heal or change in new situations, having new emotions, new responses, and new reactions to your current environment is really when you're living in the presence and in the now. And you're not taking all that stuff from the past, projecting it into the future, or worrying about what's going to happen into the future and pulling the stuff with you in the past. To have a very clean slate each day, each moment is really a high state, and it's really a fundamental drive as humans of what we're going to. We could choose, definitely we have free will not to do it, but that's really where our evolution is. So in our physical body, your body will cycle through things to have you feel things, to pay attention, and it'll get your attention. Sometimes it'll just be a little, maybe just frustration is usually easier for people to relate. So it might just be a nagging little annoyance. Then that same thing can go into a full-blown explosion of anger because you just didn't tend to it. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. But a few key things of what you want to, before you even start this process, is create a space where you feel safe and secure. So it could be a position, you can lie down, you could sit down, but you want to feel that you are going to have anything around you that's going to make you feel comfortable, especially if you're going into uncomfortable emotions. And usually anything that we haven't felt yet, whether it's even joy, it could be any emotion, if it's still not rattling around in our bodies, it usually makes us uncomfortable. And we don't want to go there. So to get an external environment where you feel really comfortable is key. Then the next thing is to have, so get set up. If you want pillows, you want props, you want everything. And also then know the next thing you could do is, if it doesn't, feeling your feelings, you don't have to be still. It doesn't have to be a meditation. Most of the time when you're in meditation, that is where you start to feel your body, and that's where things come up. And that's how people have a harder time being in their body, because that's where their emotions are. The other thing is you can also move. So dancing, just putting on some music and allowing the movement to go through you is the other choice in the meditation that I give you. So decide, which do you want to sit, lie down, or do you want to move? And you can change that during the meditation, because depending on what emotions come up, you might want to do all three. And then the other thing is to have a journal afterwards. So I am not the best journaler because I journal, but I usually write really sloppy, and I don't usually, I can never go back and understood what I read. I usually have that, so I just get everything out physically. So to make sure everything that got moved really gets out of my body. So I have some journaling prompts in this PDF I basically created for you. So with that, then it starts the meditation. And how to get into your body and really feel. So, the first thing is to really become a witness. Look at your emotions like you're looking at TV, you're watching a play, you're watching an event outside of you. The more you can witness how you feel, the easier it will be so you could have the full expression of that emotion. Now, sometimes the emotions are there's a lot to it. So it may take several times to really feel that emotion until it's really released. Because emotions just want to be felt. And we as humans don't really, we're so smart. We have this beautiful brain and we could truncate and stop that feeling. We could stop it from happening. Now, we wish probably too you could go into and stop thoughts from feeling or stop the emotion from happening. So you can't really stop that. You can, however, feel the emotion so it no longer is like tapping you, going, hey, feel me, feel me. I'm ready to be felt. And then the other thing is you could do is with your thoughts, if you have really critical thoughts, you can bring yourself back to the present moment out of your mind, out of your ego, and say, okay, no, this scenario is not happening right now. And you can just literally remind when you catch yourself in this negative pattern that keeps you racing to either feel anxious or worry or sad or whatever the event is, because if you're thinking it, you're not really feeling it. We can't really think our way through our feelings at all. So we really just need to feel them. So for your mind, you could just tell yourself, stop, do a little draw a line in the sand with your mind. Like, okay, I'm not going to think about that now. I'm going to feel it and then I'll deal with you later. And typically once you resolve the feeling state, when you get into your body and feel the emotions, then you don't have these repetitive thoughts so much. Sometimes they're habitual and you have to, again, just be conscious of them and go, okay, no, I'm not going to think them right now. No, that's not real. Okay, what I felt was real. And I've really set so I don't have to have this habitual thought anymore. Then the next thing you want to do is, and I'm just looking down at my papers, is start to breathe and honor. So we've talked about all the setup. And the other thing I want to mention is have a friend or someone that you can confide in. Like if you start, say you're grieving a loss of a parent, have someone that you trust that during this process or after your process that you can call and you can say, hey, I've been really hurting, that someone can just listen to you and have support. Even if it's in this group, you can private message me or you can write a little something about how you felt so other people can feel compelled to support you in that way, because there is always some support out there and you want to feel that you're also being heard. And if you need a loving, helping friend, that they're there. So don't be afraid to think about that before you start this process, because even if you don't use it, it's always good to have a nice setup where you are taken care of on all levels. Then once we start the meditation, you're just going to close your eyes and you're going to breathe. And there will be a sensation, there'll be a pain, there'll be maybe a feeling right there that's just going to pop up. And what you want to do as the witness in that state, just see what comes up and allow it to come up, to give it space. And sometimes it could be tingling, sometimes it could be a pain. It could be like you could feel in your shoulder and then maybe it goes to your side and then maybe it goes to your leg. It could be something where it doesn't feel like it moves at all. But even, everything moves a little bit, even if it feels stuck, there'll be a vibration there. And just focus on that for a while. And if there's tears, allow them to come. If there's anger, a really good thing to do with anger is just imagine a flame and imagine yourself being burnt up in that flame. And And then that way, that's a very good thing to do with anger, because anger, we feel like we need to express it. We need to get it out. We need to tell someone. But really, that usually doesn't. I mean, I know for personal experience, anytime I've been angry and I've been like yelling and demanding, it doesn't go well. It doesn't, I don't get what I want at all. And it's not good for the other person. And it's just, it's too much. And really, if I would take time to go in and just feel that feeling and think of it as a flame or something that's burning me up, and just allow the feeling to go through my body and feel it completely, then even if it's in a situation where I need to express how I feel and what needs to happen differently, it won't come behind it with all this anger, all this like aggression energy. And then this only has to be 5 minutes. And you want to give yourself permission to allow and permission to be felt. Because most of the time, we're not giving ourselves permission to do these things. We have a tape where we feel we need to be tough it out, or we shouldn't feel it. There's usually something like behind that. So to give yourself permission, like, no, okay, I'm entering this with my own free will. At any time, I could decide not to stand up, to move on. I don't have to complete it if it's not what I want to do. No one's forcing me. And using the language of allowing, to receive, to feel, to enter into a new relationship with your feelings, whatever language creates a space of allowing. You want to just keep telling yourself, like, no, I want to be here. I really want to feel this. What do my feelings want to express to me? What feelings want to be felt? So what do I need to feel? And give yourself permission as you witness it to feel it until it's ran its course. Now, start with only a few minutes, maybe 1 minute at the time, and then maybe go up to 5 minutes. Because once you really are in the emotion, it doesn't take hours, days, years. It might be a very complex emotion where you have a lot of emotions in this category, maybe sadness or hurt, that your body's been wanting to feel for a while. So you may go back to it and have a same theme. That doesn't mean that those feelings are the same. It's the same experience. That same incident could just be that there's a lot of them. You have a lot of hurt, which this is how you heal, is you go into it in a loving way and allowing. There's no force, there's no demand. This is a very strong practice, because once you volitionally say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to show up, I'm going to feel my feelings, and I'm really going to see where it takes me. No one's making me, there's no force, there's no one to butt up against. That's really a big act of bravery, because if they weren't uncomfortable to feel, then you would have felt them already. I wouldn't be having this conversation. The whole world wouldn't be talking about feelings and being sensitive and oversensitive, because once we heal our own wounds, then we start to relate different to other people. And then if someone is oversensitive about something, and oversensitive meaning that they're responding maybe not to you, but to something that happened in their past that creates this, it's like a cup of water. Like they're full, and you just come in and you do the same, and that was the last drop, and they just can't. There's their capacity to feel it, is to experience this. They're at their limit, and you just happen to be the person to be on the other end of that. So that's what I mean by oversensitive, because they're so sensitive to everything. They're filled. And once we heal our own selves, and we're the only ones that can do this. You could read a book, you could do mindset work, you could do, breath work, you can do all sorts of things. But you could think about it, you could rationalize it. But until your body expresses the feeling and the energy shifts, that is when it's released. So, and you're the only one that can do that. And that is your inner healing journey and work. And that is what makes it so powerful. because it's only you can do it. There's no thing, and there's no like secret way around it. Even in the energy work that I do, when we find emotions that were there that are underneath and triggering, or the root cause of the pain or the trauma or the whatever emotion it is, either inherited or something that happened in this lifetime, that doesn't mean once it's removed and released, that's a big thing, because then you don't have to think about it. It's very non-invasive. But there is all your belief systems and your body and everything. So you have this space now. And most of the time what we want to do with space is like, oh no, I wanted to expand. I want to have more space, but it's uncomfortable. How could I feel it? And again, that's where you would use this meditation and feel the uncomfortable of having space, having joy, having this release that maybe you've wanted to forever. And that is a practice to develop. So then when new feelings come in, you just feel like disappointment, self-doubt, any lack of confidence, any fear, any worry, any anxiety, any grief, that you have the capacity now to, because some of the older or some of these emotions that have been like filling you up, that's not allowing your system to handle any more feeling states, has been released. And now you can process this a little easier. And you're training yourself like anything else. It's a muscle that needs to be developed. It's a tool that needs to be developed. So you're not bypassing, you're not skating, but you're really feeling your feelings. It only takes a few seconds and then you can move on. So it's an invaluable skill to have, and also to teach to your children or friends, and just it changes your state of being. And then once you're feeling the feeling and you're done your few minutes, and then see if it's a really strong feeling, just ask yourself a few questions like, okay, how am I feeling this, or am I responding to the feeling? So if I'm thinking about how I feel about it, if I'm using language like that, maybe I'm not feeling it. So how can I get into my body? Where does it feel into my body? How does it need to move? What does it want to be expressed? So then you keep on going through this process. And in the beginning, I would only say I would do just a few minutes, set like 5 minutes aside if you're not with your feelings. If you're someone that's more experienced, give yourself like 20, 30 minutes. But try not to just, the other thing I want to say about it is that you're always going to have these emotions. We have these emotions. And even in healing, you're still, just because you've healed from this trauma or healed from this wound, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have struggles that parallel or similar to it. What this does for you, it doesn't make everything go away. It just gives you a more grounded way to deal with new feelings and new situations and new stresses that come up, so that the idea is that we don't accumulate them anymore, that we're just not keep collecting more and more of them, that we feel our feelings, our relationship with our feelings become friendly. Like no one wants to be sad or hurt or heartbroken. But in feeling the heartbreak, that gives you a lot of love and compassion for yourself and others. That gives you this huge capacity to be in the world and to understand and to listen. So the more you can do that, then just the more satisfied you will be. And if you could give support because you really relate to that heartbreak, to someone else, to a friend, to a grieving, friend, if their parent had passed, or their husband or wife or friend or son, then they see a different way. And we keep on, like, it's all these little webs of connection of how to be there for each other. And then you allow yourself to feel the joy and the bliss underneath all the sadness and pain. And if you are uncomfortable with feeling positive feelings like love for yourself or compassion or joy, happiness, bliss, silliness, playfulness, that is also emotions to delve into and see if you can sustain feeling them until they are felt too, because no emotion is off limit. There's no bad or good emotions. Emotions are just energy. They're in our system telling us something, giving us some response, some reasoning. We have them. So they make emotions really are the juiciness of life. And they make us feel alive, and they're a part of us. Now just having a relationship with them, that is advantageous to us. Same with the ego. And I won't get too far into it here, but the ego is really here to protect you and keep you alive. Same with your emotions and your physical body. How we eat food, how we grow, everything about our system and in the world, in the system, like plants, animals, all over, everything wants to grow and remain alive. So we have these safeguards in us, which is our ego and these emotions, to kind of help guide us through to see if we're safe or not and to keep us alive. Because our ego is dealing with all this more intellectual stuff than we ever have before, we're not, fortunately, most people, and most people that are listening to this we're in a more advanced society where we have more time to be with our emotions, and no one's ever really taught us how to be with our emotions. So to figure that out and to really just know that they're energy, know that they just want to be felt. You don't have to act on them. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to trust them or not trust them. You don't have to validate them or invalidate them. You just have to feel them. And to feel them is harder than it sounds. So to use this witnessing and just allow them to take their course, knowing that you're always in control and you're feeling it in your body, you're just not thinking about it, is the basis and foundation of your healing work and healing through anything. It could be, because we all go through life with loss, grief, pain, could be physical pain. No one goes through life like unscathed without any life happening to them. And I think it's our responsibility to choose how we want to live in our life. And that isn't like fairy tale or not based in reality. It's a much more pragmatic way to live, because then you can feel your feelings and you can not move on like it doesn't matter, but then you can just move to the next moment. You're not always pulling them in to try to figure it out, because emotions, you really can't figure it out. And you don't have to figure it out. They're not here to be solved. That's not the puzzle to be solved. The puzzle to be solved is how to feel them so they move through you, so you're not pulling them forward. So I think I probably said enough. And the next thing is if you want to move. So especially sometimes pain, sadness, and anger, again, I just want to be moved. So turn on some music and move as much as you can, and see if you can allow your emotions to move through your body, other than you saying, oh, I'm angry, so I'm going to bang my fist. If you kind of need to do that in the beginning to kind of prime the pump, you could do that. But really what you want to be in the state is as that witness, see how the feelings want to move. Like, is it in your hand? Is it more gentle movement? And just allow the feelings to initiate your movement. And then once it's done, come to rest. And again, ask yourself those questions. How am I responding to this? Am I reacting? Am I responding? Do I have a response? If you get stuck, and if you don't, if you feel it's complete, then move on. And again, with both, start few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and then you can expand the time as needed. And at the very end, just again, give yourself a lot of praise and gratitude. I don't think that's one thing we give ourselves enough of credit. Whatever language you need to hear, really give yourself as many accolades as you can for even attempting or sitting through the process, or however that looks for you. And then do a nice cleansing breath to end. Then journal. So I have some journal prompts in there what you want to do is just journal. And like, if you're like me, I just kind of scribble stuff out. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. But it's more just the act that I've had this experience. Now I'm going to get it out on paper, and then it's there. I no longer have to embody it anymore. I felt my feelings. I expressed any thoughts, feelings, beliefs, desires, anything that needs to be heard, seen, and felt. And it's out there. And then it's done. And then start the process all over. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll put the link to the guidebook, and let me know how it's going for you if you have any questions. I'm going to be starting a program in March, which I'm going to open up to about 7 to 10 people. Right now there's like a couple already, but and we're going to go through this more in-depthly, because what I have found with all of this work, and the place where the sweet spot where I love is like the healing work is great, and there'll be a component of that, but then it's all this stuff to do after. Like, what happens after? So now I have all this space and room. Our bodies and our mind want to go back and cling to the past, like even with COVID. So most people want to go back to normal. I've heard that like tons of times, and I've even said like, oh gosh, just to go out to do like to a restaurant and to go a place and be near people and not have to be masked, and like we could touch and, interact is something that I miss. But I also know that when that happens again, it's not going to be what it was in the past. And after all this, I don't want to go back to the past. So even with your emotions and healings, we're creatures of habit of what feels comfortable, what's known. And even if it sucks, we usually go back and do it anyway, because at least we know that it's this unknown stuff. This new charted territory is like, ugh, I don't know. I don't know. There's another tangent, but it could help. Maybe you've done something with like your weight, like maybe you have changed all your eating, and for a really long time you ate like fast food, and then you switched and you do all great home cooked meals, and then at some point you reverted back to eating the fast food again, and it slowly crept in and it just became more convenient, and you did all that work in between. A lot of times why that new thing, but you felt great and it was wonderful, but the other stuff was just more convenient. So you would think, wow, I did all that work. Why would I go back to it? Just because sometimes if you don't know how to put in new practices in place and change and expand, then it becomes harder to sustain. It's not really about willpower, and it's not anything negative about you can't do it or it's this or lazy or any of that. It's more about once you create all this space and you're in this expanded place, it's so different than what you were used to. Your system just wants to go back and find something familiar. And that is what the program's going to be about, is the healing part, but then also after, what practices to do. And practices, I mean, is like we all do practices. Like if you take your hands and just naturally don't think about it and cross them, it's going to go one way. And then consciously do the other way, and it's going to feel weird to go the other way, because practices that we do are just habits. So so I'm going to be talking about that more, but I wanted to really give you a nice foundation of what to do with feelings, since they are so we put so much investment in them, but we also don't really know what to do with them. And they are a great, powerful source of our healing and self-care. And we don't need to be driven by them, and we don't need to be afraid of them. We just need to teach ourselves how to feel them, so then they just get released and they're not driving our beliefs and actions and reactions. But they're really just, what they're here for is to be felt. And if you would like to book a free call with me, you could go ahead, and I'll put that link too. So it's about 45 minutes and a clarity call, and we just really talk about what is going on with you, where you feel stuck, maybe maybe a pattern's been happening over and over again in your life, or it could be a relationship ending or beginning, or you're looking for one, anything really. And just go over, give you a plan of really if we would be a good fit to work together. And even if not, you'll be leaving with some real practical things that you can integrate in your life to start moving yourself in a direction where it's more aligned with what you want. So I hope you guys have a wonderful February 2nd. And please leave me any comments, or if you have any problems with the PDF, or if you have any questions about things that have come up, go ahead and message me privately if you don't want to leave comments in the Facebook group. And I will see you in a few days. Bye.